Since the banning of Survival, the Legacy format has roared back to its old diversity. To clarify, I mean diversity of decks that are actually competitive in the current metagame. In this video, I want to address a few misconceptions I've heard on the forums, talk about what I'm playing right now, and what's hot in the current format. One of the main things that I seem to regularly hear on the forums is that Countertop is a dominant deck. It's not even close. Frankly, it's not even that good right now. Countertop isn't anywhere close to dominant, and by looking at Star City Games tournament data, you can see that it's not doing very well. For example, despite tournament data showing that all Countertop builds put together account for the second most popular archetype in Legacy before the two most recent SCG tournaments, they didn't place a single top 16 at either Memphis or Dallas-Fort Worth. That's saying something. The main reason is simple: Countertop is weak to Merfolk and Goblins. These decks are able to deploy critical massive threats backed up by disruption, and out-tempo the counterbalance player by use of cards such as Goblin Lackey, Daze, and especially Either Via, which can win through the deck's namesake soft lock. One might notice, however, that Goblins has recently taken a dip in success. This can be adequately explained by the surge in popularity of Team America following DC, when Dan Signorini, the first guy to popularize the deck, rode it to first place. Team America has the excellent ability to interact with Goblins early on, by use of discard spells, stifle, free counter magic, and cheap removal, followed up by efficient big creatures that can manhandle small red dorks. Team America also deals with Junk, a deck that rose to prominence by beating Goblins and Merfolk effectively, by playing the discard and removal game as well, but playing actual counter magic to stop the other guy's threats, and Stifle is extremely cheap land destruction, given Rock's abundance of activated abilities that sacrifice lands. Throughout this video, when I refer to Tempo or Stifle decks, note that I'm primarily talking about Team America, but those categories can also include Canadian and Next Level Threshold, New Horizons, and the bug deck Jerry T piloted to third place. So what's going to happen next? Well, for one, Merfolk seems to be seeing a surge alongside Team America, as Merfolk is almost immune to mana disruption, has either Vile and counter magic to fight back against disruption and removal, and a suite of powerful synergistic creatures. A couple Star City Games writers seem to be advocating mono red burn. This makes a degree of sense, as such a deck smashes Merfolk, and is able to ignore much of the disruption that tempo decks will throw at you. Another potential solution, and this one has had a bit more recent success, is Affinity. Affinity is able to ignore Wasteland much of the time, due to Mox Opal and Springleaf Drum, and its bombs are easily able to compete with those of any tempo deck. Its creatures also just flat out run over those of Goblins and Merfolk. The winning build from Dallas even has built-in resilience against Pernicious Deed and Crozon Grip in the form of Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, a constant card advantage engine that can also turn lands and Ornithopters into 5/5 beaters. A solution I have in mind is a mono-white deck featuring a combination of Wasteland, Either Via, creatures such as Mother of Runs, Stoneforge Mystic, Mirran Crusader, and Sarah Avenger, and good removal like Swords to Plowshares and perhaps Path to Exile. I would caution against pushing it, and playing cards like Managra of Karandar and Karakas, since that opens you up to Wasteland, but it's your choice. If you want to play on a budget, you may not even need Wasteland for such a deck, and you can just borrow Mystics and Swords from standard players, and the rest of the deck is under $100. The current lack of graveyard hate also makes me question whether or not Dredge is a good choice. The problem is, tempo decks and Merfolk have plenty of ways to slow you down main deck, which can be a problem. Hence, you may have to aim for a more resilient build, rather than the traditional explosive one featuring Lion's Eye Diamond. That's not my area of expertise, though. The last deck I'm thinking about might be the one I should have mentioned first, Zoo. The reason I'm somewhat hesitant to mention it that its matchup against Stifle decks varies largely on those decks' sideboards. Team America, for example, can bring in Perish and deal a hefty blow to Zoo. I would suggest that Zoo counter with something like Mirran Crusader, Team America has no way to deal with that card once it hits the board, except for bouncing it with Jace, if they have it, or brought it in against you, using a deed, which they seem to not play, or getting it with Consuming Vapors, probably most likely. I might thus go for a Big Zoo deck with cards like Noble Hierarch to support the heavier white theme, to play bigger spells, and to strengthen the mana boss. All in all, Legacy is a very exciting format right now, and I'm looking forward to playing it in the months to come. Please leave any comments or questions you may have. I'll be happy to answer them.